Good morning, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to our Malaysia Global In-Market webinar. I'm Ashley Ridley from State Promotions, Department for Trade and Investment, and I'm your host for today. So, following the success of our first two series of our Global In-Market webinars, which consisted of 12 webinars and a total viewing audience of over 700 attendees, I'm now pleased to welcome you to our fifth webinar of Series 3. This one's particularly exciting as it forms part of my department's High Tech Month for May. Each month, we are focusing on a specific sector to give people and companies from all over the globe to discover South Australia's capabilities. High Tech Month provides the opportunity for you to engage with some of the brightest people in machine learning and cybersecurity anywhere in the world and learn why South Australia is the ideal base to grow their technology business. So please head to the Department for Trade and Investment's website for further information on upcoming events. So today, we will actually hear from our in-market expert, Adil Akbar, South Australia's Senior Business Development Manager in Malaysia, as well as our guest presenter, Danyal Hamidon, from Austrade, Kuala Lumpur's Business Development Manager for Disruptive Technologies. Adil will share his insights on the impacts and challenges of COVID-19 in Malaysia and how businesses can better position themselves for current and post-pandemic opportunities. Danyal will follow with a bit of a deep dive into the high-tech sector for Malaysia and the wider ASEAN region, discussing popular topics such as artificial intelligence, big data, smart cities, creative media and cybersecurity. So allowing time for questions all up, I anticipate this webinar should run for the maximum time of 45 minutes. So before I hand you over to Adil, as always, I'd just like to share a few logistical items. This session is being recorded and will be uploaded to the department's website. At any time during the webinar, you can ask questions or provide feedback through the Q&A section on the right-hand side of your screen. However, please ensure your question is directed to all panelists rather than specifically to one, as this ensures I can see your question or comment and enable me to moderate them. If we do run out of time, we'll include any unanswered questions and the answers onto our website, and I'll also make a point to follow up with you directly to connect you to the most appropriate departmental representative. And lastly, we will have a 10-second poll pop up at the end of the webinar. Please do take the time to complete this for us to continually improve our communications to you. So it's now my pleasure to introduce you to Adil Akbar, South Australia's Senior Business Development Manager in Malaysia. Welcome to you, Adil. Good morning.
Good morning, Ashley. Thanks again for inviting me for this webinar series. I'm glad to be here again and to share with everyone on the latest market conditions, which continue to change on a daily basis. I'll also share with you on new information as to what is and is not functioning in the market, opportunities for products and services, what companies need to be doing now and in the recovery as well, and how the government can help. Also on that as well, just to share, yesterday was my first time going back to office. After 2 months, we were told to work from home. So currently, how we operate in Malaysia over here is that we're going to work under split rotation teams, Team Alpha and Team Bravo. So each team will be able to go to the office for about half of the week on a needs-based basis. Due to the city centre is still a red zone area, so at least for the next few weeks, we'll be observing the situation very closely and only enter office on a needs base. It's also a fasting month in Malaysia, and I've been fasting about 20 days as well, and we are entering the last 10 days of fasting month in Malaysia, and we're excited that we're gonna celebrate a major festive season as well end of this month. So just to share with you what I've prepared for today as well. So there'll be some advices for the businesses on what you need to know on the local situation, as well as on-the-ground information for the Malaysian market. Next, please. So Malaysia started a movement control order since the 18th of March until the 3rd of May 2020. So on the 1st of May, the Prime Minister has announced that the government has changed the movement control order into a conditional movement control order. It starts from the 4th of May until the 12th originally. And just recently, he has announced an extension of that until the 9th of June 2020. So what it means is that in this conditional movement control order, Malaysia has started to go into the recovery phase in terms of the COVID-19 outbreak. Daily new cases has trended downwards since mid of April. So it has trend downwards from 3 digits to double digits. And since end of April, it has been quite consistent in double digits with a few spikes, including earlier this month where it was once it went up to triple digits again. So recovery rate is very encouraging. It's at 76% of all cases as of 12th of May. Out of 20 countries which have, there were only 20 countries that have more than 400 cases in the world that have achieved at least 75% and above recovery rate, and Malaysia ranks number 19. On just 2 days ago, on the 12th of May, we set a new record low of 16 new cases. However, the situation is still fluid. One day it might be a very low double digits, and the next day it might go back mid double digits or high double digits. So the government still have to really observe the situation closely, as well as the public has been told to take all safety precautions. The mortality rate is still below 2%, and which is very encouraging as well. So basically, in this conditional movement control order, the government has started to restart the economy under a gradual manner. However, due to the announcement was made sudden on 1st of May, which is a public holiday over here, and on the Labor Day, most states have postponed the starting of the restart of the economy, and most of them are only doing that this week. Hence, many businesses have started to work this week, and including for our office, we only started this week to get back into the office. Few sectors are still not allowed to operate, which I'll share a bit later. International borders remain closed. The government has, in fact, heightened the control at the border areas to make sure there's no illegal crossing. And interstate travel still requires police permission. There's been some relaxation if you are traveling due to work and you are traveling in a company's vehicle, then you may not require to ask for permission. Political situation in Malaysia is heated at both federal and state governments. So for those who are not aware, there was a political upheaval in late February, and there's a change of government in early March with a new prime minister. So due to this situation in the last 2 months, it's a bit heated where the majority of the federal government is being questioned. The Malaysian Federal Parliament had been postponed its sitting from March to the 18th of May next week. Hence, as you can see, because the Federal Parliament is going to open soon, there's been more talks about politics this week. Political appointments are continuing as the federal government is trying to secure their position by getting more support amongst the federal parliamentarians. However, these are raising some concerns because unlike before where some head of the GLCs, government-linked companies are technocrats or corporate peoples, they are now being replaced with political appointments. Good news is that just yesterday, the central bank has announced that surprisingly, Malaysia's GDP was still in green for Q1. So we registered 0.7% growth. This was despite two days prior to that, analysts was putting a median estimates at negative growth, about -1%. Financial systems of the country remain robust. There's concerns on oil price crisis impact on the government because oil and gas revenue still make a huge chunk to the government's revenue, although this has reduced quite a bit within the last decade as Malaysia has expanded and diversified their economy into other sectors as well. Unfortunately, Malaysian ringgit continues to depreciate against the US dollars, and as of 12th of May, it has depreciated about 5.8%. This is in the outlook based on last year, Malaysian currency is also the worst performing Asian currency in the world as well. GDP outlooks, despite Q1 was encouraging, there's still outlook that is going to be worse in second quarter and before we start looking at some recovery. And jobs losses, we are still looking at about 1.8 million in median estimates. Next, please. So these are two pictures which I've actually shared in the previous webinar series a month ago. But what I want to share is that there is still an enhanced MCO, which means full lockdown, basically, at several locations, even in KL city center and in the satellite city of Petaling Jaya. Hence, why the government have told people to still be wary and take all safety precautions. Drones are being used to monitor not just the lockdown areas, but also nationwide, and especially at Malaysia's international border. Recently, also, the United States have sent 6 new UAVs as well to the Malaysian armed forces, which will be useful for them to do more surveillance even at the South China Sea. Next, please. So just additional information on the current market conditions. The central bank has cut the interest rate by about 100 basis points. So it has reduced from 3% at the start of the year to 2% right now. And just within this month, it was a 50 basis points reduction. Hence, the central bank has taken an aggressive move to help to sustain the economy within this challenging period. The central bank has expect that quarter two GDP to be severely hit, so we're definitely looking at a contraction. And there's a chance we might see a technical recession this year, which means 2 quarters of negative growth. The central bank has predicted unemployment to be about 4% on the 1st of April, and they said that recently that they foresee that it's going to going above the forecast of the 4%. We might see some recovery in second half of 2020, but recent news as well before the CMCO started, we've seen especially the hospitality and tourism sector has been hit very hard, with several hotels nationwide have been closed. So the government has said that the economy is, they plan the economy into a 6-phase plan, which is resolve, resilient, restart, recovery, revitalize, and reform. So Malaysia is currently under the third stage, which is restart, and the government is doing it in an orderly and controlled manner. They will decide further relaxation of rules only after 18th of May, upon observing the first 2 weeks of the CMCO on how the situation is. The Health Ministry did mention that they are hoping that Malaysia will see very low double digits and maybe even single digits by the end of the month. Government has mentioned that they're going to announce a 6-month short-term recovery plan by the end of May. This comes from the finance minister, and there's assurance from the central bank itself that there's sufficient fiscal space for further economic stimulus if required. This is on top of the 260 billion Malaysian ringgit that has been allocated by the government and announced for the past 2 months. So what are still closed? Most economic sectors are already open, including restaurants, although there's a lot of SOPs in place. Schools and childcare centers are still closed. Major public exams are cancelled, especially for for primary schools. For secondary schools, the major public exams have been delayed to quarter 1 2021. So this is SPM, or Malaysian Certificate of Education, which is equivalent to year 11, and also STPM, which is equivalent to year 12. So that's going to be impact to the international education sector for our state. For now, the focus is on home-based learning, with a lot of them going through either online or even via TV, television. So gyms, salons, even massage parlors and spas are still closed, and outlets with entertainment license are still required to be closed. So for pubs and bars and nightclubs, if they are licensed by the local authorities under the entertainment license, they are still allowed asked to close. However, if their license is under restaurants, because they might be serving food as well, they are allowed to be open. However, they will have to follow the SOPs. Contact sports, body contact, indoor as well as stadium sports are still required to be closed. Social, community, as well as cultural events, which requires large gatherings, including religious and any office assemblies, are still prohibited. So each sectors are given a strict standard operating procedures by the respective ministries, which they will have to follow. So operating hours will have to follow based on the respective SOPs. So what involves in this SOPs, some of it would involve, for example, screening of employees on a daily basis, sanitization and disinfection process of workplace, as well as company vehicles. There's going to be social distancing rules within the office as well. And for retail outlets, as well as other relevant locations, when there's customers coming into the premise, their names, the telephone, as well as the dates are supposed to be recorded. Not to mention haircuts as well, including salons, is still not allowed. Hence, many Malaysians currently now have to resort to haircut at home, which I experienced myself recently. So what we need to know, which is to know in the situation on how it can help us to enter the market recently, and what are the opportunities. For the corporate sectors in Malaysia, the board of directors have 4 focus areas. These are done by a research recently by a consulting company. So their 4 focus areas are in IT infrastructure and facilities, HR management and policies, reputation and crisis management planning, as well as effective stakeholder communications. These are where we see a corporate enterprise company with large and medium size. There's a lot of opportunities we can foresee in the services and tech, hence why we're happy to have Danyal to join us today to share on the opportunities, not just in Malaysia, but ASEAN as a whole. So with the future outlook, we can foresee there's more digital demand coming into the market. Focus area, it is also a focus area for the government to transform the economy, and they have mentioned this many times recently in the news and publicly in their announcement that they want to use the digital economy as a way to increase the country's productivity. The retail sector, what's important is for us to know there's going to be a change of consumer behavior and new trends. E-commerce is booming. In fact, we are working towards an e-commerce plan, which we're going to announce soon. So stay tuned on that. There's going to be a plan to bring some South Australian brands into the market in Malaysia via the e-commerce platform. So brand loyalty is important for you to inculcate in your customers now, and feel free to experiment. Customer experience is definitely the new brand. In the education and training sector, innovative engagements are important in this period. So what it needs to be done is that it has to meet the expectations of not just the students, but also the schools as well as the universities, as these are the key priority going forward. Due to travel restrictions, I would suggest that our universities as well as higher education institutions to focus on TNE, which is transnational education. Digital adoptions would be much needed now in the professional sector, hence training for reskilling and upskilling. We can foresee there's going to be an uptick on this, although currently it is still low, the take-up rate. The focus would be on value for money as well as open access products and services. So any clients or businesses from SA that has an offers for COVID-19 on online training, this will be a period that you might want to try out to test out the market, and please reach out to us so that we can help you to enter the market. In the health and medical sector, digital health is the key subsector that we are looking at. There's a lot of trends in this now. Virtual consultation at private and public clinics, as well as integration of telemedicine with existing healthcare services. This includes drug delivery, and the public sector has mentioned that they would like to reduce congestion at government hospitals and clinics. So I'm just sharing this picture again as what I've shared a month ago. This is one of the competition in the digital sector that we are working to promote to Australians and South Australians specifically. So if there's any AI companies or even in the smart cities that would like to participate in this competition, please reach out to us. The due date is end of this month. So what is the new normal? I won't go through the whole points. Some of it I've already mentioned in the last webinar. So, but what is important is that we need to understand that there's going to be depressed incomes and concerns of financial health in the consumer's mind. So there's going to be a gradual recovery rather than a very quick recovery in these periods. We can foresee consumption is going to stabilize in Q3, and we're looking at a recovery at Q4 at the earliest, provided there's no big second wave outbreak of COVID-19 in this country. So business is, of course, focusing on survivability now, with mainly cost containment is their main focus. They're also focusing on tactical measures on how to transition their employees to on-site work again. Hence, again, digital infra and employee upskilling would be the main priority. This market is about relationships, so it's a long-term game. Discussions may take a bit longer, and I would suggest to have patience in your tag to this market. Please continue to engage with your consumers, reintroduce and reposition your brands to consumers. Trust, safety, care, and value must be addressed. So how DTI can help? You can reach out to me directly via my contact details, or you can also contact via our onshore support, as mentioned below via Sonia. We've also have a lot of support programs, so please come to our website and you can get more information over there. Thank you. I look forward to your questions later. So I would like to pass the presentation to Danyal, who's going to give more insights in the space in services and tech, not just in Malaysia, but also the ASEAN.
Thanks, Adil. Hello and very good morning to you from Kuala Lumpur. For today's presentation, next slide, please. For today's presentation, we'll be going through some of the broader concerns within the ASEAN region, as well as how COVID-19 is impacting Malaysia and in the ASEAN region. And then we will dive into some of the opportunities that are going on in Malaysia. And hopefully we will have enough time to go through some of the opportunities that are within the ASEAN region as well. So I would have to say thank you to some of our colleagues from Austrade ASEAN posts. So that includes my colleagues from Indonesia, from Philippines, Singapore, Vietnam, and they did provide a lot of feedback to this discussion, as well as if you would like to get in contact with them later on, we will be able to facilitate that as well. So in terms of ASEAN, I think the ASEAN region is a very popular destination for trade opportunities, especially in the fact that there are 637 million people in ASEAN, as well as there have been $93 billion in terms of two-way trade between Australia and ASEAN, which is greater than the US and Japan. And also there are 1 million people in Australia who are Australian citizens, but they have ASEAN ancestry. So it's not just the trade value, but also the cultural value that we have between the ASEAN region as well as Australia. So in terms of services and exports, the interesting part is that what we saw, the highest trending sectors are actually personal travel, especially in education, as well as business travel between Australia and ASEAN. So obviously within the crisis of COVID-19, these sectors have been heavily impacted. And this is why that it's very important for us to look at opportunities, how we can work with ASEAN partners in terms of facilitating digital channels or product delivery for travel when it comes up and running. Obviously, none of travel will be happening within the near future, but it is within our hope that at least by at the end of this year or 2021, there will be some activity in that space. That being said, I would like to point that ICT and digital services have still been strong between Australia and ASEAN as well. As you can see, like $264 million were spent in terms of telecommunications, computer and information services. as well as this financial services, which is interrelated with the fintech industry, which is burgeoning in the ASEAN region as well. So the macro trends for ASEAN is that there's not just the high digital penetration rate in ASEAN, but also because of the expanding cities and the urbanization, and the several projects that are happening within several different ASEAN countries, including Malaysia, Indonesia, as well as Singapore, Philippines. We are all working towards some smart city projects, which is why at this juncture I would like to point out the fact that the city architecture of tomorrow program that we are collaborating with, the Adil presentation that he put up, I think that is why such initiatives are very important at this time. If in terms of innovation, digital transformation, there's a very strong e-commerce growth, and then very strong healthcare services as well, which is actually, it's good news in the sense that these things were on the rise even before COVID-19. And as you can see from later on in the presentation, this is very important in terms of driving that business opportunity in the tech sector. At this point, I would like to point out that Austrade does have its own landing pad, which offers various amounts of services for tech companies, whether it be startups or scale-ups, to apply for 90-day residencies at a co-working space in Singapore. And we have a landing pad team that will be able to help give you in-market learnings and to organize workshops, as well as to organize tailored business development assistance between our markets. So usually people who spend the 3-month stay in Singapore will be able to have access to any of our markets in ASEAN, and then we will sync up with the Singapore landing pad team to business development managers all over ASEAN, including myself. So in terms of COVID-19, I have an understanding that we are looking towards alternating the program into digital-only assistance, but this is something that we are still working on, and then we will be able to share more in the future. So in terms of COVID-19 impact, I think Adil had spoken briefly about this, but what is interesting to note that there are common areas of digital growth or digital demand growth in light of movement restrictions, and this is not necessarily just in ASEAN, but this is more of a universal demand that is happening all over the world. So number one is working from home. We are experiencing there's a rising demand, especially for cybersecurity and good connectivity. For ASEAN region, we have the benefit for most major cities. We are okay in terms of the good internet connectivity, but in terms of cybersecurity, it remains to be a key concern for us, especially for small and medium enterprises. There's an increased reliance on logistics-based retail platforms, most notably in food and beverage, as well as other channels, including e-commerce. As I mentioned before, the e-commerce is it's a very strong area of growth even before the crisis in ASEAN. So we will be able to leverage on the existing platforms that we have here. There's been universal adoption to e-learning and doing classroom-style webinars. People are using Zoom just like everywhere else, and as well as WebEx. There is an uptake also in financial services. Though the penetration rate for fintech services are kind of varied within the ASEAN region, there is certainly more of an interest to actually pay online or to do contactless payments. Also, the fact that because of the financial hit that a lot of the Malaysian businesses and ASEAN businesses are experiencing, a lot of people have been looking at insurance products online, as well as other products like loans and mortgages online as well, working capital online as well. So it's very important for these systems, for the financial services sector to be able to supply and meet that demand, because people are still afraid to go to the banks in person. Digital health services, as Adil mentioned before, it is on the rise in Malaysia, especially with regards to COVID-19. There are some improvements in how we do digital health services and how the government is reacting to that. And lastly, digital surveillance, which is something that many people see as a silver bullet, but unfortunately it isn't for COVID-19. But there are certainly that everyone is looking into how can we use existing technology and infrastructure to help stop the disease and get the economy back running. So in terms of Malaysia, what we see is that the COVID-19 impact has driven consumer demand, but there is about lots of business may impede B2B dollar investments. And what I mean by that is that because of the movement restrictions that we had over here, which is quite robust compared to some other countries as well. But we have seen that there are some trends that the government has noticed, including that from working, in terms of that the companies being able to sell products online, only 12.3% of companies had sales or services via online channels, which obviously shows a significant gap on how many companies weren't able to sell anything during this movement restriction order. In terms of working from home conditions, 33.5% of all companies in Malaysia are working from home. And even though there are restrictions that some restrictions have been lifted, including some people go back to work, a lot of people are still working from home as well. So that means that the significant portion of the population still relies to go to their physical offices or their workplace to make a living. In terms of cybersecurity, there has been a huge surge of cases for individuals and for businesses. So there was a survey out from one of our local newspapers that did suggest that there has been a 82.5% rise during the same period of March to April of cybersecurity cases. And this is not surprising considering that there are more people who are working at home, and there are more people who unfortunately are looking to trying to make a living. In terms of online consumerism, there have been surveys and indications that 48% of adults are doing more online shopping, and 46% of adults were doing groceries online shopping. So before the movement restrictions, movement control order, most Malaysians still prefer to do their F&B shopping, in person, but we've seen a surge of demand for online only. And there are various companies who are trying to meet that demand here. So that's the good angle in the sense that there is a increasing demand for technology solutions, as well as looking at foreign solutions to help supplement that demand. However, there are some concerns in terms of the dollar investments that may go into it. So loss of capital may hinder investment into new technology. And especially when 42.5% of companies have stated that it takes more than 6 months to recover their business because of the COVID-19 situation. So what that means is that the adoption of new technology could be impeded because if obviously depending on the technology solution that one may provide to these companies. Certainly, if it requires a significant amount of human as well as money capital into implementing that technology, it's going to take a while for it to come back. And that being said, in Malaysia, generally speaking, companies are less likely to spend X amount of dollars for solutions. They would prefer to look at solutions that are on a partnership basis. That means a profit sharing basis rather than actually buying out certain technology. So the other thing is that majority of businesses are still reliant on low skilled labor. According to the Malaysian Productivity Corporation, 73% of the entire Malaysian workforce are semi to low skilled employees, which obviously means which may mean a bit of a difficulty to adopt technical technical skills to operate advanced technologies. And certainly there's a big question of how would be able to do that if a company would be able to spend money on a technology, but they don't have the skill force to implement that technology. Yeah, so in terms of there are some examples of ASEAN's technological response. You know, as we mentioned, the essential services basically are being upgraded to digital platforms. So in Indonesia, there has been some negotiations as well as accessing telehealth to seek initial diagnosis between private hospitals as well as local hospitals. And there's an increase of e-commerce transaction. Food delivery market potentially doubled in 2020 as a result of COVID-19 disruption. And a lot of, from Indonesia, a lot of businesses are looking at implementing product price bundling, platform integrations for services that includes companies who won't be able to sell their products physically have to partner with a digital platform to sell their product. But it also includes platform integration to enable citizens to report COVID-19 incidents as well. And the Philippines, there has been a surge of, there has been more interest in terms of digital financial products and fintech solutions, simply because the Philippines is a market that is dominated by big conglomerates and family-owned businesses. So across different industries, so it was worth their while to make sure that across businesses, they will be able to look at financial products that will be able to supplement their income. We will probably see more investments and increased transactions in digital banking, e-commerce, and logistics and digital health. In Thailand, another example is they're using artificial intelligence to help screen the applications for stimulus packages back to the general population, as well as that our office in Thailand is seeing more interest in sort of hardware, quote-unquote hardware solutions to help the return back to normal businesses, especially in malls and retail areas. So at this point, we want to dive into some of the opportunities in Malaysia. As you can see here, that we're going to be looking at data solutions, smart products, and cybersecurity, and some creative media, because these are areas that we saw that South Australia may have strengthened. But of course, if you're a company from South Australia, from different tech verticals, we can also supply that information as well. For example, fintech solutions we did not include here, but we'd be able to give some more information for the demand for that as well. In terms of data enterprise solutions, in Malaysia, we're looking at building digital ecosystems and conglomerates who are looking to tie their businesses between different industries. So, for example, Grab has provided e-hailing solutions, but now has rolled out the products online. And they're not the only ones. We're looking at companies in the oil and gas sector who are moving into retail. We're looking at property developers who are looking into e-commerce as well. So, or offline to offline businesses. So data solutions are most welcome, especially if they give 3 different things to a specific company, which is enhancing customer experience, especially in customer onboarding and a digital only channel, which is very imperative right now, and to introduce customizable products, making more products more affordable and intuitive, as well as streamlining operations and reducing the cost and to deliver those products. In terms of smart products, include smart cities. 5G trials are taking place in Malaysia at the end of 2020. Hopefully that will take place, or maybe in 2021. There are also related to that logistics, smart products related to logistics, including telematics, and including reducing road traffic, or anything that really impacts last mile delivery efficiency is essential, especially to boost the e-commerce demand. Sorry, to boost the services to meet the e-commerce demand, as well as resources and energy, where there has been more interest for companies to look at safety solutions or tracking solutions, tracking supply chain and management solutions as well. For real estate, a lot of companies are looking into smart utilities to reduce costs, or to track assets in storage or warehousing, or maybe including monitoring foot traffic into malls, or building better management solutions for residential property. So in terms of creative media, in Malaysia, there's a nascent but fast-growing gaming development community. We have some companies over here who have been looking at character development, who have supplied for very big companies in the United States as well in China. So this is a space that we are keeping an eye on, but it's still very early. In terms of virtual and augmented reality, there is interest for AR, VR capability, especially for private companies who are looking to boost their customer experience, especially in tourism and in property. For cybersecurity, as I said, there's a big demand for cybersecurity, especially amongst individuals. I would say that 84% of SMEs experienced some form of cybersecurity in 2018. A lot of them incorrectly think that they're immune to it, other than big corporations. You know, and cybersecurity solutions with auxiliary services may interest businesses. Security solutions that can boost profitability for business are especially in demand. So since I'm running out of time, I would just leave it at that. But for the opportunities in the ASEAN region, I will have that as part of this presentation, so you will be able to check out these insights at a later time. For the last thing I would like to say, for Malaysian market, there are some entry challenges and things for you to consider. There are legacy IT solutions from US and Chinese technology solutions that are in Malaysia, and that is something that is not just specifically in Malaysia, but including products from Google or IBM or Amazon. So those are the things that you have to keep in mind. In Malaysia, there's the strongest, largest companies are government-linked and government-owned, which could mean a lengthy procurement process, and also some implications in terms of employment and how the technology solutions impact employment as well. And most of the government-linked companies are looking for ROI quickly. On the SME market, which is, even though it's very interesting, then there are almost 1 million SMEs in Malaysia, which contribute about 38% of Malaysia's GDP. Though digital transformation is not necessary, there is still a lack of awareness as well as the financial means to do it. And lastly, I would say that if you're looking into the Malaysian market and as well as the ASEAN market, look for partners, not buyers, especially for distribution partners like telecommunication providers, associations, agencies. Okay, and as well have a look at regulation to see how your product will impact the management business as well. Since we are running out of time, I would skip ahead to the last slide, which is the questions and answers. Thank you for taking the time and the interest for listening to some of our solutions. Like I said, we will deliver some of those insights from the other ASEAN countries in due time. Thank you.
Well, thank you both, Adil and Danyal. Both updates and presentations were fantastic. You are right, we are really well and truly out of time, but we do have time for some questions. So please, if you do have any questions that you would like to ask, please submit them through. Stay online. We do have a couple that have filtered through. A couple of questions that have come up have actually responded and said your presentations have actually answered them in the meantime, and a great session, thank you. So I just wanted to pass that feedback on to you. But in the meantime, I'll start off with a question that has filtered through. This one's actually on the international education side. So perhaps this is one for you, Adil. Based on our current market situations, what is the impact for the intake of new international students to our universities in the next few semesters?
Thanks. So as I mentioned earlier, some public exams, especially for the secondary school sector, has been postponed to Q1 2021. Due to this, we can see that rather than coming into the early 2021, it might be pushed to the second semester in 2021. We are also looking at in the next immediate semester in July intake, due to the travel restrictions still in place, so we can foresee there's going to be an impact on that as well. So we foresee that maybe towards second semester 2021 where we'll start to look into recovery. Thank you.
Thank you. Danyal, quickly, are there any specific opportunities or initiatives in the Malaysian market that you are currently working on that would be of interest to South Australian businesses?
One thing that we're working on right now is the Catch Initiative, which is the City Architecture for Tomorrow Challenge. So that's something that we're working with the local government who have been organizing it with Toyota Mobility Foundation. So it's a really interesting opportunity. I invite everyone to check it out because they do enable businesses to come here to do an in-person trial if needs be. And they do provide some funding as well. So that's something that people should check out. But that's the main initiative that we're looking at. And we are looking at some activities in Q3, possibly, but depending on the COVID situation, we will give an update about that a little bit.
Okay, and there is one final question online. Again, if you do have a burning question, now is your chance. Will travel restrictions impede negotiations with potential ASEAN partners?
For technology solutions, I would say that culturally, before COVID-19, most partners would rather have multiple meetings in person. It's really a trust issue, especially when you're looking at POCs that are kind of long-winded and requires a lot of capital. That being said, people are adapting to a new situation, looking at digital means of communication, including some pitches as well. So we are trying to facilitate that for digital communication, especially first time meetings as well. So we would definitely see an uptick in that as people are just getting used to this new situation. But we believe that there is some potential that we can work together with companies to help facilitate.
So given we have entered into this digital space, and you said the potential partners are generally more comfortable in those personal meetings, do you think that will continue post-COVID? Do you think that's something that we can continue to have those VCs and digital meetings?
It's hard to say because this is a new normal. We won't have a vaccine anytime soon, so I really wouldn't stick my neck out and say that, yeah, everybody goes back to having meetings at coffee shops and in restaurants. I just don't think that it's possible, especially at least for this year or next year. So I think it's just a matter of culturally that we as a culture have to get used to doing digital meetings, and I think I think yes, there will be some trouble in the beginning, and yes, maybe we should be more creative in terms of doing digital meetings. But I believe that we will have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. Certainly, you can leverage on Austrade in South Australia for the badge of government, which actually makes it a lot easier in the first place.
Okay, and very last one. You have 15 seconds. Any tips, advice to maintain a competitive edge in the ASEAN market? What's your number one tip?
Protect your intellectual property. Number one. Number two is that have really innovative solutions that no one else has, especially from American or local or Chinese companies, because we are looking at the really, really cool innovations that we don't have in the market.
Really good tip. I like the international property comment. So that comes to the end of our webinar. Thanks for staying on. Thanks, Adil, Danyal. It's been fantastic having you here with us. Please do take the time to complete the short poll that's now on screen. Remember, you can submit feedback and suggestions for future topics. We do listen. We're here for you. We want to help you. You have so much government support here. As you can see, we work closely with federal government, in particular Austrade. We have excellent locally based staff and my fellow departmental colleagues, such as the international market teams, the sector focus teams, and the trade start advisors. As I said, we're here to help. We want to help you. Lastly, I do hope you can join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. for our next China and Hong Kong in-market update. This will have a bit of a focus on international education. So to our education partners, please join in to hear the latest updates. Remember to head to our website for information on all of our webinars or view previous recordings. Visit our website as shown on the closing slide. And again, it is High Tech Month, so have a look. We've got some really world-class presenters. We're getting fabulous feedback from those. So thanks again for tuning in, and I hope to see you online again soon. Have a fabulous day. Thanks, Adil. Thanks, Danyal.
Thanks, actually. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.